Good afternoon and welcome to the 60th anniversary celebration of the WSU Honors College. My name is Cassa Hanon, and we're delighted to have you join us today for a presentation with Honors alumna Gerri Martin-Flickinger. In today's presentation, Gerri will talk about her experience as a technologist that started at WSU and has taken her to her current role leading the global technology organization for one of the most recognizable and respected brands in the world, Starbucks. Before we begin today's presentation, it's important to acknowledge that WSU's locations statewide are on the homelands of Native peoples. Washington State University and the Honors College express its deepest respect for and gratitude to these original caretakers of the region. As mentioned earlier, my name is Cassa Hanon, and I'm also a proud alumna of the WSU Honors College with a bachelor's degree in computer science that led me to a career in technology in a variety of industries, including some years as a partner at Starbucks. I serve on the Honors College Advisory Board, and this fall I'm excited to be teaching a course on innovation as an adjunct faculty member of the Honors College. Now it's my pleasure to introduce today's presenter. As Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer, Gerri Martin-Flickinger leads the Global Technology Organization. She is the passionate leader behind the technology strategy that plays a critical part in propelling the Starbucks mission forward, empowering partners and delighting customers globally. Upon joining Starbucks in 2015, Gerri led Starbucks Technology through a transformation into a best-in-class retail technology organization. Her Starbucks technology teams are known for their thought leadership, deep partnership with business teams, inspired use of emerging technologies like AI, blockchain, AR/VR, and IoT automation, and well-architected secure solutions. Prior to joining Starbucks, Gerri was Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Adobe, where she led portions of their technology transformation to a cloud-based subscription services business. Before Adobe, she served as Chief Information Officer of Verisign, McAfee and Network Associates, and held numerous senior leadership roles at Chevron, where she began her career. Her breadth of experiences equip Gerri with broad technology industry insights and deep cybersecurity experience. Gerri currently sits on the Charles Schwab Board of Directors and serves as a member of Arizona State University's Fulton School of Engineering Advisory Board, Sierra Ventures CIO Advisory Board, and the Wall Street Journal CIO Network. Gerri holds a BS in computer science from Washington State University with honors. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that the YouTube comments box is on. So if you have questions for Gerri, you can enter them in the chat and we will do our best to answer questions throughout the presentation. And now please join me in giving a warm Cougar welcome to Gerri Martin-Flickinger.
Cassa, thank you so much for such a warm welcome. It's so nice to be back with a bunch of Cougs. I'm looking forward to the next 35, 40 minutes together. And I'd love to share with you a little bit about my journey in technology that really started at WSU. Like Cassa said, I really want to make sure that we spend time making this conversational. So throughout, we'll stop and ask you if there's any questions, and we'll do our best to keep the flow going. So let's get started. I always love starting with a little bit about let's get those slides going. There we go. With sharing a little bit about my journey to WSU, where I left and went to after WSU, and how I have now come back to Washington. I love this picture on the left-hand side. This is my high school picture. I went to Anacortes High School and graduated from there. I then went to WSU, which I'm going to talk a lot more about in this conversation. And that's my mom and dad, and I'm sure you'll all recognize the Washington State University sign on campus. I then married my high school sweetheart. We've now been married 35 years, and we have two beautiful twin daughters who are now juniors in high school. And we ended up moving back to Washington State from California, where we lived for over 32 years. When we moved back to Washington State, was really a moment to reconnect with family and friends and the locations where we grew up. But my husband came back with one particular score to settle. When he had been a kid, he had every year with his dad built a milk carton boat for the infamous Seafair milk carton boat race on Green Lake. And every year for several years of his youth, he would go out there and he would give it his all. And he remembered quite poignantly how the last year he had entered the race, he had lost to two 13-year-old twins. And so for years, he had talked about this experience. And so when we moved back to Washington State, one of the first things we did, because we had 13-year-old twin daughters, was to build a milk carton boat. And you can see the proud father there with the trophy because we won our heat. So we came back to Washington and were welcomed with open arms. When I joined Starbucks, one of the things that really excited me was the purpose and mission of Starbucks. And I'm going to share a little more about that throughout this conversation. You see a picture of me there at one of our coffee farms in Costa Rica. And what I love about Starbucks is it really does bring you right back to the land and brings you right back to coffee farmers and what it takes to grow coffee and a coffee tree. One coffee tree will spend an entire year to get one bag, 1 pound of roasted coffee. So next time you enjoy your bag of coffee, just think about that tree that worked an entire year to produce that wonderful cup of coffee. Okay, so let me talk a little bit more about what a CTO does, because a lot of people have come up to me and said, Starbucks, I kind of know about the stores. I love the coffee. I love the products, but I never really thought about technology being part of that. So let me share what it is that a chief technology officer does in a company like Starbucks. A chief technology officer is responsible for the technology that touches customers, like the mobile application. We're responsible for what happens inside a store. So the point of sale, the inventory systems, the payroll systems, the scheduling systems, as well as Internet of Things devices that run in the store. And we're also responsible for everything that happens in the corporate offices, which includes things like supply chain management, store design, and all of the aspects of that. And of course, this happens all worldwide. Today, there are over 32,000 Starbucks stores worldwide and over 400,000 employees who we call partners. So when you think about a CTO in any company, there's usually several things that you're responsible for. The first is vision. And vision is so important because it is all about storytelling and exciting people about what is possible in the future. The second is defining a strategy, which is basically a roadmap of how you're going to bring that vision to life. The third is actually making it happen. It's great to have a wonderful vision. It's wonderful to publish a strategy, but if you can't actually implement the projects and then make the technology run day in and day out, it doesn't matter. And so operational excellence, both being able to deliver technology and keep it running, is critically important. And then innovation, it kind of goes without saying, but you have to really have a mindset of innovation, constantly looking to the future, constantly trying to explore new ideas, and always being ready to try things and fail and try again. And then last but not least, and something that I hope everyone does in their career, you really need to believe in the company that you are part of. You need to be a cultural ambassador for the work that you're doing. In the case of Starbucks, I find that really easy. It's really easy because the mission of Starbucks touches me. And here's what it is: to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. And I know that for myself, every time I get that warm cup of coffee in the morning at a Starbucks, or every time I have a chance to go and talk to a barista at my neighborhood store, it just makes my day a little happier. And when I watch how Starbucks touches our communities worldwide, I know that it's a company that really is mission driven and cares deeply, all the way to our farmers out in farms all around the world, all the way to our baristas in neighborhoods everywhere. So let me pause for a minute, Cassa, and ask, are there any questions that are coming in on the chat channel?
Thanks, Jerry. So one of the things that I wanted to ask about is diversity and inclusion. I know when I was a partner at Starbucks, it was one of the more diverse workforces I'd ever been part of. And I know that it's always been a key goal and an important value for Starbucks. But for you personally as a leader, what are some of the actions that you take to foster a diverse and inclusive environment?
Yep, that's just an excellent question and such an important question right now at this moment. I have always believed that it's so important to have diversity across your working group, and that's diversity of all sorts. It could be diversity from culture, it could be ethnicity, it could be gender, it could be diversity in styles. Style variances are an important aspect of what builds a really strong team. So we work really hard to talk about not only what do we agree with, but how do we have differences? And are we honoring those differences? And are we really looking to bring in people in our teams that aren't just like us, but actually bring something different to the table? I have been very, very fortunate in my career to have the chance to always work in companies that value inclusion and diversity and have had teams that have a lot of that diversity within them. We continue to be very committed to that, as well as in our stores, which you've seen many things from Starbucks about how we are trying to ensure that we have representation equally across the globe and across the nation. I would also add that there's another kind of inclusion we don't talk about a lot, which is with our customers. We, for example, have a signing store that is available that focuses on the hearing impaired, and every single barista in that store is fluent in sign language. We have worked very hard on our application on our mobile app to make sure that it is completely adaptive to various types of disabilities. So I think it's very important that we think about inclusion and diversity in all things 360 degrees. And I think it's tremendously important. Thank you for that question. It's a very important one. Thank you. All right. Let's move on. There'll be time for more questions. I love this picture. Hopefully, there's many pictures on this slide that excites all of you. And I want to tell you some stories about my time at WSU. Have you ever heard the expression, if you do what you love, everything will take care of itself? And of course, we've all heard that. And that's a wonderful expression, and I believe it completely. But I know that when I walked into WSU's campus the first time, I didn't know what I loved yet, and I had to go and find it. And when I showed up at WSU, I was in love with lots of things. I loved math, I loved history, I loved English, I loved electrical engineering, I loved computer science. And one of my fondest memories is how the honors program became an opportunity for me to really explore some of my passions in some untraditional ways. And my favorite was how in the 101, 201 type courses, instead of being in the large freshman, sophomore courses, the honors class would put together very small classes with a professor, and you would have an opportunity for some self-directed study. And I don't think I would remember any of my classes if they had been 101, 201 courses, but I can tell you about two very specific courses I was in honors. One of them was quantum physics. And if you knew me well, you would know that I'm probably not a physics guru by any stretch. But by being in a physics class, I had the opportunity to write a paper on Weimar Republic and how it influenced quantum physics research, which for me really was a great opportunity to not just talk about the nitty-gritty physics, but to really talk about the cultural impact. Here's another one, an English literature class for honors, and we were challenged to think about the classics differently. And of course, one of those classics that we read was Dante's Inferno. So I ended up writing a paper. Okay, get ready for this one. This is like way out there. Was Frank Baum's Wizard of Oz influenced by Dante's Inferno imagery? Like, I don't even know how I came up with that idea, but it was something to do with the trees with the arms and the Wizard of Oz. But what fun was that as a college student to have the opportunity as a freshman to write papers on topics that allowed me to visualize learning differently and allowed me to find connections between things that other people might not have been thinking about. And I would tell you that that led me to part of my passion, which I liked putting things together differently, and taking a piece of perception from over here and something I learned over here and figuring out how to weave that in to a story that maybe gave a different perspective of an issue. Dr. Badia led the honors program back then. And for those of you that are alumni on this call, you may remember Dr. Badia. And I know that many of the things that the Honors College has turned into today started with some of that great foundation he put in place. Now, here's another story about me at WSU. I needed to make money. Like many of you, I got to college, got through that first couple years, and really needed to find a way to contribute to my education with some dollars. And so I did what many students do. I applied for a TA-ship. And I was super excited when a day or so before classes started, I got a call letting me know that I had, in fact, received a TA-ship. And I am expecting to grade papers or something like that. So I go to the computer science department to get my little packet of information about my TA-ship. And lo and behold, they say, and you are teaching assembler programming starting tonight at 6 o'clock to 50 students. And I said, no, I think there's been a mistake. I'm supposed to be grading papers. And they were, nope, this is what we need you to do. And I really needed the money. So I accepted, of course, the job. And what you need to know about me is at that point in time, I really could not be in front of a room. I would break out in sweats. I would be sick to my stomach. And because at that time you could get a long way in school without really getting in front of the room, I really hadn't done it. And so I remember walking to Todd Hall that night with my chalk in my hand, with my little chalk protector for the blackboard, just trying to psych myself up. And here's what I discovered about my passion. The second I started talking about technology and seeing what it felt like to share my passion with others and teach them and find ways to explain things in new ways, I lit up. And so I discovered that computer science may be the discipline I got excited about, but the ability to communicate and bring others along and help teach was equally important to me. And to this day, that continues to be a very important part of who I am. It's part of why I'm a CTO. It's that ability to take a technical vision and make it something that can embody the imagination of folks who maybe aren't technical and then bring it to life. All right, so that's a little bit about my passion. And I think that when you find that thing you love, when you find your passion, it shows in everything you do. It shows in your face, it shows in your body language, and it's really going to bring you along as you continue to go through your career and your life. And your passion can change. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but I'm going to take another pause. And Cassa, is there any questions out there that people would like to know?
Yes, we do have a question, but first I'm still freaking out about the idea of teaching assembly language on the spot.
It was so fun. Oh my gosh. To this day, there's nothing quite like teaching. I ended up doing it for quite a long time and loving every minute of it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Yep, we all learned every tiny little detail about machines back then. It was incredible. This question is from Victor, and it really relates to the idea of being a woman in technology. His question is, what did you do on your journey to push past the challenges of becoming a female technologist and leader?
Yeah, that's, I get that question a lot, or some form of that question a lot. And here's a couple of things about how I've always looked at that. First of all, I don't think of myself as a female technologist. I just think of myself as a technologist. And I think I've approached it that way throughout my entire career. I never thought about what others may or may not think I could do. I just went out to do what I thought I could do the best and tried not to have it get in my way. Now, having said that, I do think there are moments in any career, whether you are male, female, or any other pronoun or any diverse group, where you may want to look for mentorship from others who maybe have done it before or who maybe could talk through differences of style. The one thing I would say that probably struck me most as differences between different groups of technologists is often style diversity. So where I might have a tendency to work through a problem with a certain type of collaboration approach, I may have a male counterpart who uses a different type of approach to solve those problems. And when we're faced off with each other to work through a problem, we may both come at it from very different perspectives. And if you expect everyone to be just like you, it will probably fail. So the best thing you can do is to find what's unique in your skill set, what's unique in other people's skill sets, and talk about it openly and find the best path forward to solve the problem at the moment. But I like I said before, I really haven't focused on that as something to overcome. I've just focused on being a technologist and bringing my own best self to it every day, and whatever diverse thinking I have, bringing that to the table and working with others. Yep. Okay, let's keep going. All right. Here's another thing that I'm sure everyone on this phone or this conversation today believes as well, which is intellectual curiosity is vital and it's wonderful. And it's something that regardless of the discipline you're in, having intellectual curiosity will keep you going and keep you growing. So I would say that this is also something that I started learning at WSU at the very beginning. And here's a little bit of my journey in life that helps illustrate this point of intellectual curiosity. At WSU, once I decided computer science was my thing, I also decided that artificial intelligence was my thing. And at that time, that was like 2 hype cycles ago of AI, but at that time, it was a big deal. And I spent a lot of time learning about neural nets and doing some crazy programming in Lisp and all sorts of other things. But what it led to was my first job, which was with Chevron Oil, where I actually did some pretty extensive software engineering using AI techniques like neural nets. And it was really a fun time for me. It really taught me a lot about what it meant to be a hardcore software engineer. It taught me what it was like to write a bunch of code and then discover you have a bunch of bugs. I learned, what is it like in the middle of the night when you get woken up because your software broke and you have to drive into the office to figure out how to fix it. It taught me a lot about how to teach people about how to use software, especially software that might be taking over parts of their job. So I learned a lot. And so I would say intellectual curiosity carried me a lot through that first, 5, 6 years of my career out of college, and AI became pivotal to that. But I also got to a point where it's like, I'm ready to become more of a leader. And so I got a role as a leader of the engineering team that I had been part of. And that was very exciting. And I was working really hard and I was spending lots of hours and I was making sure the team was writing all the right code and I was doing the presentations. And one day, my manager called me into his office and he said, Gerri, now that you are a manager, you are supposed to be spending time looking out the window. And I became very uptight. And I said, wait a minute. I am not going to put my feet on the desk and look out the window and relax. And he goes, no, you're not understanding me at all. And I said, okay, try again. He said, you need to get your hands out of the details and you need to pay attention to what's out in the future. You need to clear your mind so that you can think and vision and figure out what that next hill is we're going to take. But you can't do that when you're in the weeds. And I thought to myself, well, that was very interesting. And so that was the next time where intellectual curiosity, which had nothing to do with a technical aspect of my job, actually led me to reinvent some of my skill set so that I could become a better leader over time. I do think that AI thing, though, comes back eventually. And what you see here on this screen on the left-hand side is a coffee machine that may look familiar to some of you because you've seen them in Starbucks stores. It's actually a Mastrena 2 machine, and it is IoT connected into all of our stores. And we actually use artificial intelligence and machine learning to understand things about maintenance and when to do preventative maintenance, and understand quality that we are having across our entire fleet of stores around the world. So AI has definitely come back, and it's good to stay curious and look for new ideas. Another area that has been really fun for us to be intellectually curious about lately is blockchain. I think anyone here who's in computer science has probably learned quite a bit about blockchain in the last couple of years. We actually use it to bring transparency to our customers about the origin of our coffee. I mentioned to you how important the coffee farmers are to Starbucks. And one of the things we care greatly about is making sure that they're all compensated fairly for their coffee, which means we track for every bean that we use, where it came from, who was paid, how much it was paid, where it went to be roasted. We know the origin of your coffee. And you can know that origin too by simply scanning the barcode that is now on all of our bags of coffee, and we will connect it to a blockchain application that shows you the origin of the coffee, which I think is a wonderful way where our intellectual curiosity about remaining transparent and true to our heritage can marry with technology in a way that brings that to our customers. So remain curious. All right. Let's take a minute, Cassa, and see if there's any other questions around that topic.
There are, and actually this is perfect and a little bit selfish on my part too, because we do have a question about innovation and specifically about some of the things that you think are important in facilitating innovation. And for me, it's what behaviors and attitudes are you fostering in the culture to keep Starbucks' reputation as an innovative company?
Mm-hmm. I think innovation, such an important topic. So I like to think about innovation in time horizons. And there's room for many different places in any company for innovation to occur. There's a time horizon that I would say is current to 2 years. And that style of innovation will tend to be done by the teams that are closest to the work. So for example, in the coffee machine IoT example, the teams that actually work on engineering our equipment alongside our technologists who work on IoT and store technology work together to bring that innovation to life. It becomes, innovation is a core capability that we embed in every single team within the company. So it's a mindset. And we use facilitated spaces for that. We do some really cool human-centered design workshops to help people continue to innovate and think differently. But in a further out time horizon, really most companies would also be thinking about what could be going on that's massively disruptive, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years out. We have a small team of emerging technology engineers whose job is not to produce an innovation to go into a store today or a year from now, but to be really thinking and exploring innovative technologies that might be ready for prime time 3 years out, 5 years out, so that we can start to get ahead of that. Because in some cases, you have to start sowing those seeds long before you're ready to put it out in a production environment. So I would say innovation has become everyone's job. And for those timelines that are closer in, it really is embedded in people who are closest to the work. And in a further out spectrum, we have people whose job it is to be thinking as strategists and technology innovators to try to help us plot a course to that future. Great. Did that work?
That works. I'll use it in my class.
I love it. Thank you. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Here's another thing that has been really important to me from the very beginning. And I think some of it started with that WSU story I told you about teaching assembler programming. From that moment on, I became very passionate that the very best technology is technology where people are at the center. Instead of thinking about the technology you can build, start by thinking about the people you're building it for. Feel the compassion for what they're dealing with. Get into the heads of those people, those customers of yours. Become focused on human-centered design. Think inclusively, like we talked about earlier. Don't think about people who are just like you. Really think about people first. And this is very prevalent at Starbucks and in Starbucks technology. And I'd love to just run through some examples of that. I probably have 4 or 5 I want to run through. First, people who design stores, and you see some blueprints on this visual here, that's great. But you know what happens when you design stores? We have designers who travel all over the world to check out the sites, and every store is a little different. And wouldn't it be great if instead of doing that and having them travel, most of the year, we let them stay at home and put on an AR, VR headset and walk through their designs and see exactly what that would look like and move things around so that they can reduce travel and also simply be more efficient and effective. And that's exactly what we've done. So our designers have AR, VR design labs, and they're able to do all of that work from their home. How about delivery drivers? What you may not have ever thought about is that every night, all around the country, all around the world, we have drivers who are delivering product to Starbucks stores. Those croissants, those cake pops, all of the wonderful makings for your lattes, all of that. And lately, a lot of pumpkin. So all of that's being delivered. And if you think about how that would occur in, the very recent past, they would have clipboards. When they would go to the depots, they would get a big long list, a tier list of all the things they had to deliver. And then when they'd get to a store after they delivered it, they had to initial it. And if there was something wrong, they had to write a note to somebody. And when they get back to the depot, they had to put all that into a computer somewhere. How much better if they could have an iPod with them and they simply scan things? And what if back at the depot, they could see where every truck is, and if any issues occur, it immediately goes into the trouble ticket system so that when they're done for the night, there is not a pile of paperwork to do. So that's a great example of some of the putting the human in the center that you may not be thinking about. How about store partners, our baristas, who then have to take all that inventory and check it into the store and figure out where to put it? And wouldn't it be cool if they didn't have to do any of that and they could just maybe wave a wand and have it all checked in? How about our customers? Right now we're dealing with all of us in this pandemic world, figuring out how to have some traditions. And clearly the old tradition of sitting in a Starbucks in a cafe isn't the same. So we had to very, very quickly pivot and provide things like curbside or walk up or delivery nationwide. And that again is thinking about the human in the center. Our customers, they wanted to be safe, but they still wanted that ritual. And then another example here is the COVID dashboard that you see on the left-hand side. This is an example where Starbucks, we needed to enable our leaders who work all across the country with information about what was happening with outbreaks in their region and how could they think about that interleaved with the data about their stores and their partners. And so there's a number of examples where innovation and tech brought together new tools that would help them be even more focused on how to keep people safe in our communities. So those are just a few examples of the way that even at Starbucks, if you put people in the center of your technology, you're going to build much, much better technology. And hopefully it will give people more time to have human connections together. Okay, let's take a moment. Cassa, do we have any more questions?
There is a follow-on question in your conversation about using AI with tracing and tracking the coffee supply chain. How else is Starbucks using technology to improve the lives of coffee producers around the globe?
Yep. So we actually use blockchain to trace the coffee. So one of the things we've put in place a number of years ago is called cafe practices. And we were the first in the world to do that, which is an entire program to help ensure that farmers have equitable pay and safe working conditions for all the coffee we buy worldwide. That's a really important part of Starbucks' mission and a passion for ours. In terms of technology, the strongest technology that we have that's actually playing directly into that right now is the data and the visibility and transparency of the data that we then use to validate that those farmers are actually being treated appropriately. So yeah, it's a great story. And there's nothing like, if you ever get a chance, any of you, to visit a coffee farm, take the time to do it and walk out in the fields. And, a coffee tree, which people say tree, and we're in the Northwest, I think, it's 40 feet tall. Most of them, maybe 6, 7 feet, some 5 feet. They're not huge trees, but those mighty bushes bring us that wonderful coffee every day. Okay. All right. We're rounding up here now. I just have a couple of last comments about community. And I think community is another aspect of what has become very important to me in life that really started at WSU. Well, at WSU, the honors program provided this amazing community, a community of students and professors and advisors who stayed together throughout your college career. And I think about it as a community as people working side by side with each other, learning from each other, celebrating victories and supporting each other during tough times. And I think the importance of community today, it has never been greater. We are at a phase where we're facing economic cycles, we're facing pandemics, we're facing social concerns. And I think the foundation of community is so important. Certainly it's important at Starbucks. It's important in my personal life. I think it's important that we all think about how we can help each other, how we can listen and learn from each other, how we can continue to uplift each other, because we can all get through this, but we're going to get through it as a community. I am just so, so proud of the WSU Honors community and everything they've done and how they've continued to evolve through the years. And it's been just so much fun to have a few moments to spend with you today. So Cassa, let's see what other questions we might have out there that we can answer.
Absolutely. Fans want to know, Gerri, what are your daily reads that you recommend? Do you have any newsletters or publications or podcasts?
Oh, gosh, I do a little bit of everything. And I'll be honest, I spend a lot of time talking to my daughters because I'm finding that they give me a lot of insight into what the next generation, after the next generation of leaders, are going to be thinking about. So I would never want to underestimate the value of actually getting some of your daily reads from people by talking to them. I do spend time reading all of the normal news. Over the years, I found a number of different technology publications. I actually, I read GeekWire quite often. So just pretty much the normal things you would see on the headlines. Nothing exotic. There's no secret manual or secret publication.
Viewers are also asking Gerri about your daughters and want to know what's the possibility of getting them to be coots.
I don't know. You never know. You never know. We did make a little trip over to campus this summer and walked around with our masks on and checked it all out, and it was beautiful. And I think they were very impressed. So we'll just have to wait and see how that all turns out.
So then finally, Gerri, I want to ask you, what does it mean for you to be a Coug?
Oh, wow, that is a wonderful question. I mean, I think I've said a lot of it here today. I've talked about community and having room to think about things differently and continuing to focus on intellectual curiosity. But there's one other thing I really feel strongly left a mark on me, and that's the Palouse. I have to say part of being a Coug is Pullman and the experience of being in a college town surrounded by farmland where people are connected to the land. And I just think there is such a fundamental warmth in that. And I just hope everybody in their lives at some point or another has a Coug moment when they have the opportunity to live and learn in a place as beautiful as Pullman, surrounded by the beautiful Palouse.
Well, and it really fits with us being a land-grant university and having that that charter and that legacy. I think there's something about having that connection to the earth, and it's certainly true in your work at Starbucks as well. It's a company that has, as you've said so beautifully today, a connection to the earth and growing things, to communities and serving people, and to inspiring, moving, touching, and inspiring other humans. I love it. Gerri, thank you so much for your time today. This has been incredibly just wonderful, a great way to acknowledge the 60th anniversary for honors. And it's been so generous of you to spend time with us today.
Thank you so much.
And for everyone else, this concludes our presentation. We appreciate everyone joining us this afternoon. If you do have further questions, I know we didn't get to all of the ones in the chat, or comments for Gerri Martin-Flickinger or for anyone in the Honors College, please email us at honors@wsu.edu. And we look forward to your continued engagement and appreciate your support of our students, faculty, and programs. Thank you for being part of the 60th anniversary celebration of honors. From all of us in the WSU Honors College, I'm Cassa Hanon. Until next time, take care, be well, thank you again, and go Cougs.